and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a new and special guest with us, Dr. Andreas Rampel. Dr. Rampel is CEO of Cobalt Power Group, which can be traded as CPO on the TSX Venture. Thank you for being here with us today, Dr. Rampel.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the air with you.
It's a very exciting time for cobalt, the commodity. The pricing, we've seen a big uptick and increase in pricing over the past 6 months or so, from I think a low of $10 to around $25, a very significant and rapid increase in the price of cobalt. Can you talk to us about why cobalt is seeing this supply deficit now?
Well, as you know, there's a strong trend towards these lithium-ion batteries. But the lithium-ion batteries have more than just lithium. They actually have cobalt, nickel, and graphite as well. So cobalt, coming from certain parts of the world, not too many deposits are out there. There is a foreseeable supply crunch. The demand will go up with gigafactories popping out of the ground in California, in China. I hear Mrs. Merkel is planning something in Germany. The supply will not keep up with the demand in the next 10 years or so. Hence, the cobalt price has doubled since we started last year in September when we picked up the first little property in Cobalt, Ontario. It was $11.98. The price for the pound of cobalt was just under $12, and now we're talking over 25. So it's more than doubled. So these are all good reasons to go into cobalt and explore for it and look for advanced projects.
Dr. Rampel, looking at your resume, you've worked for Anglo American, you've worked for Hochschild, producing mining companies. Talk to us about the opportunity that's presented itself here with Cobalt Power Group and coming in as CEO in the cobalt sector, which is a sort of a new sector that's being transformed because of this new demand from the lithium-ion batteries.
It's still going to be mining of steep and narrow veins, and that doesn't differ much from the mining of these gold and silver veins in Peru or in Mexico. It doesn't differ. The idea behind is that I come in with an expertise from mining and exploration, which helps because our projects are sitting on an old mine that worked 50 years and more ago, and the cobalt is in what we call polymetallic veins, and they're steep, and the mining method is very similar to those high and low sulfidation veins in North and South America.
Dr. Rampel, the project that Cobalt Power Group has acquired is this Smith Cobalt project, which is pretty much, I guess, a 5-mile-hour drive straight north of Toronto. Talk to us about the details of this project and what sort of differentiates you from these new startup cobalt companies.
What differentiates us is that we actually sit on an old mine with underground maps, and the old veins were actually mapped and mined. We have a muck pile. When the mine closed down, this muck pile never made it to the plant. So we sampled this muck pile, which is the stuff that they were mining. So we could sample it and actually get an idea of the cobalt contents, the silver content, copper, nickel as a credit. We actually know what to expect, and we know where the veins are. Hence, our planned drilling will go for these veins, which we know they're there. We know they've been mined in the past, and we have a good idea of the grade of the cobalt, silver, and the other grades that we're expecting there. In other words, what we're doing is not greenfield exploration. We're not looking for veins. We don't have to map them. We know where they are, and we can hit them with drill holes pretty much this summer, which kind of manages the risk that you get in exploration. We are a low risk project, and it's not really greenfields because we don't have to find the veins. We actually know where they are. So you could almost say it's a mine extension exploration program, and it's low risk. That is the big advantage of our project.
Dr. Rumpel, you mentioned the brownfields here. Could you maybe go into a little more detail of the history and the development of this area in the Smith cobalt mines?
Well, cobalt was found by accident when they built the railroad along the shores of Lake Temiskaming. They came through the town of Cobalt, and they had to break some rock. And accidentally, they hit some veins, and there was some visible silver in there. So eventually, the prospectors came out and developed a mining town, and it really boomed. But it boomed several times, having to do with the gold price in the past, and also with depletion of some of the mines. So there was an up and down in cobalt, and cobalt was never mined for cobalt, except for during the war, where it was needed for hardening metal. In other words, for tanks and for ships. Other than that, it was always silver, and cobalt has hardly ever been evaluated. It was a byproduct, they got it, but so what? It was the silver. Some of the silver grades that were reported from cobalt are actually some of the highest in North America. In other words, there was a lot of silver in cobalt. But what we know, there was a lot of cobalt too. And we're definitely after both of them. We take credit for all the metals that are in the veins. That's why they're called polymetallic veins. So at the moment, Cobalt is a very sleepy town, and I think they're very happy that somebody will bring some life back into town. At the moment, you can't stake any ground anymore. Everything's been taken. So it's been a busy time in the last 7-8 months in Cobalt. And exploration will commence pretty soon.
And cobalt is labeled a strategic metal in the United States and Canada, and it's still early stage. I know if you look at the share structure of Cobalt Power Group, we're under 70 million shares outstanding. The market cap's around 6 million Canadian, and you're just sort of beginning to drill here. Can you talk to us about the project timeline and what shareholders can expect the rest of 2016 and the beginning of 2017?
Very simple. We are preparing for the first phase of diamond drilling. And I mentioned these veins that we know from the underground workings, and we've got the mine plans. In a GIS system, we built a 3D model of these veins, and now we're going to hit them in phase one with approximately 10 holes of a total of 1,800 meters drilling. And that's basically to confirm the position, the location of these veins, and get some idea on the grade. This is phase one. It's kind of just proving up, making sure that we're on the right track here. Phase two, given that phase one is successful, phase two will then try and extend these veins into a southeasterly direction, all on our ground, so we get some continuity, and that's what you need. To be economic in cobalt, one vein over 400 meters doesn't quite cut it. You need a multitude of veins, 1, 2, 3 veins over a kilometer. That's what you actually need to be economic. And this is what we will try to prove up with phase two and phase three, hopefully in the first half of next year. And after that, we should have 40 to 50 successful holes which we will use to come up with an initial 43101 compliant resource.
Dr. Rumpel, as we conclude our introduction into cobalt power, the cobalt industry is really at a fragile time here because there's not a lot of supply and it's not keeping up with demand. What sort of makes cobalt power unique in the cobalt space, and why should investors um, be interested in the cobalt sector and especially um, Cobalt Power Group and what you're doing there?
Well, I would think that with us being drill ready in a month or so, we are the most advanced project in the area. And if things go well, and they have to in exploration, you have to be an optimist in exploration. If things go well, we would be the first ones in production. We have concluded a desktop mining study of how we would go about it, how we would access the veins underground, because these old shafts, they are 50 years and older, and they're actually very tiny, and the vertical shafts, you wouldn't do that anymore. You go in with a ramp to get your big machinery underground. But knowing what we have to do for mining and being drill ready, I would certainly think that we are the most advanced project and the closest to production.
Dr. Rumpel, CEO of Cobalt Power Group, which can be traded as CPO on the TSX Venture. Thanks so much for being here with us today and for giving us an introduction into this Cobalt story, Cobalt Power Group, which can be traded as, again, as CPO on the TSX Venture. And you can get more information at cobaltpowergroup.com. Thanks, Dr. Rumpel, for being here with us today.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce our project to you.